language. Today, we'll be talking about the most famous programming and scripting languages in the world of computer development. First off, we do have JavaScript. JavaScript is attributed to Brandon H. It is the most used scripting languages in the entire front-end web development. It is also the starting to become variable assets in scripting the actions, the physics behind game developments, especially in noting Unity engines. Also, with the advent of the Node.js, specifically, JavaScript has evolved to an all-purpose language. By all-purpose, we mean that it doesn't really limit itself to web development. It is now also becoming important in API development, mobile development, game development, obviously, and other uh, paradigms in the entire computer development. Some of the characteristics of JavaScript is since JavaScript is a scripting language, it is interpreted, meaning that it is compiled to machine code on the fly. It is translated to machine code on the fly. It doesn't really need a compile time, though it do have a parser. Next, it is case sensitive. By case sensitive, it means that if one letter is capital, throughout the code it should be capital. Not using the capital format, it would mean a separate kind of uh, variable or function. For example, we do have the language word here, and we set this to a variable. A variable is a container which will be explained in a future module. However, just bear with me. If we capitalize letter L, it would mean a separate thing. So a small letter L language is different from a capital L language. Next is it supports multiple and single line comments, which is essential for documenting what we are using or the purpose of the code that we're doing. Next is the basis, or rather the inspiration of JavaScript, which is Java. Java is attributed to James Gosling. Essentially, Java is targeted as a multi-platform programming language. What this means is that it is not limited to one operating system per se. For example, if you code Java in Windows, using the same code, you can run the application in Macintosh or even in Linux. Also, because one might ask why Java and JavaScript have been named similarly, it's because during the time of Java, which started as a server application, um, JavaScript is not even being introduced yet in the web development. When JavaScript was introduced, JavaScript is trying to copy the fame of Java. So it wants to share with the fame of Java, even though it's not really connected to Java, aside from copying the syntax. So yeah, next we do have Python. This is one of my favorite rather scripting language. Python is attributed to Guido van Rossum, and it is a true general purpose programming language. By general purpose programming language, I mean that uh, it is used in a wide variety of paradigms. You name it, most likely Python is being used in that paradigm. For example, we do have web development, we also have game development, we do have mobile development also, and even artificial intelligence. Also, it is the most used programming or rather scripting language for information security tools. One main purpose of using Python for programming or scripting information security tools is its uh, flexible nature and its way of how the code is being translated. Since Python is also an interpreted language, you need or you can see the code before you run it. Unlike a compiled binaries wherein you don't have access to the actual source code. So, as part of an information security uh, perspective, the script should be visible from the user. So that, for example, if you use Nmap, for example, Nmap is an open source network security scanner to scan the running services, open ports of a specific uh, machine. And yeah, so Python is used in that application also, since what if somebody inserted a malware to that uh, application? It would be a hard time to determine, given that the malware, let's say, is a new one, or there is a zero-day attack that was determined. So Python was used in developing that kind of tools because even you as a user, if you are uh, what you call this, um, if you are accustomed to Python development, the script is available to you. You can scan the code, you can review it, and you can know that nothing is malicious in that regard, which is the essential requirement of being an information security tool. Also, it's free. Okay, next one we do have the Ruby. Ruby is also a scripting language. Okay, Ruby is made by Yukihiro Matsumoto as also a general purpose programming language, and right now there is a framework in Ruby which is called Ruby on Rails or ROR, and it enables Ruby to be used as a scripting language for web development. Like JavaScript, it is also case sensitive, like most uh, C-based programming languages, and yeah, even keywords are also being used as identifiers. The key thing about Ruby is that um, unlike the other programming languages, Ruby on Rails has this kind of framework wherein you tend to code less since you just run a script like RB new or name this class. Then Ruby will create all the essential parts of that application, and you will just need to customize those parameters, those fields and properties to your use or your need. Next is we do have the PHP. It is attributed to Rasmus Lerdorf. PHP is most used in backend web development, more on the server side scripting. It is the most used in the open source community, given that it is supported in a lot of hosting sites we do have over the internet, and most of them are free. Hence, since a lot of free hosting services supports PHP, PHP rose to fandom. One thing to note about PHP is it's easy to use and it's also fast. However, a lot of vulnerabilities have been noted, which is just a bad programming style in PHP. Hence, most PHP based applications are easily hacked. Next, we do have the C++, the breadth of this course. C++ is attributed to John Stroop. He is the C++ is a successor of the C language. It is a low-level programming language that has control over the entire machine. Hence, what functionalities that are not available anymore to high-level languages like Java, C++ and C has access to it, like memory manipulation, the actual manipulation of the actual values in the memory. It is available to us if we're using C++. Next is C++ is also one of the fastest programming languages in the entire world. Say by its design, it's simplistic in nature. However, as you code your application, its complexity uh, is also growing in a much faster pace, especially with the use of pointers and references. It's one of the uh, golden apple of C++ and also its Achilles heel. Next is we do have C Sharp. This attributed to Anders, and right now it is most used in game development. It is one of the basis for uh, developing several applications, and it also is one of the most used programming language in web development, more of the ASP.NET framework from Microsoft. One key thing about C Sharp is it's a high level programming language and it's heavily oriented towards object oriented programming. By object oriented programming, we're talking about modeling the data and the structure of our application towards a certain kind of entity. Or, for example, uh, we do have the idea of a human, and the human has these body parts like the head, the body, the hands, and C Sharp is being an open source and object-oriented programming language. Its way of developing the application is by patterning to that kind of entity. Like, hey, one object of my uh, program is the head, the other is the body and the hands. And for example, my hands is composed of these kinds of number of fingers with specific properties like its color brown, for say. Okay. Go is another one of the rising programming languages in open source community. It's created in Google. Its main authors are Robert Graysmer, Rob Pike, and Ken Thompson. One key thing about Go is its memory safety and garbage collection features, which allows a proper uh, memory utilization since uh, garbage collection is most important when you're trying to save RAM. For example, your application is designed to use a lot of variables, and variables as a container occupies some space in the RAM, and garbage collection is the process in a programming language wherein those RAM used is being deallocated from your application to become available for other applications to use. Okay. Next is we do have the shell. Shell is mainly used in Unix based operating systems. It's like the script used in batch programming, or if you're familiar with PowerShell scripting. Shell is mainly used for uh, manipulating data over the operating system and probably administering and managing the running services. Lastly, we do have the Objective-C. It is attributed to Brad Cox, and Objective-C is one of the most popular version of C language. It's not uh, the classic or the standard C language. It tried to separate its way from the original C language as it saw a lot of problems in the original C language, hence it tried to strengthen it more and try to cover up the uh, fallbacks of the C language. So that's all for this session. So let me see you again in the next week. Thank you.